Hi everyone and welcome back. It's Bethany from Bethan Books, and today I'm going to be going through 15 books that are being released in the upcoming quarter, so April, May, June, that I'm really excited about. Granted, this is not a comprehensive list of all the books that are coming out during these months, so I'll leave a couple of links below, as well as writing all the books that I'm going to talk about and linking to their Goodreads page. Hopefully I will remember. Future me, remember to do that. Okay, right, on with the video. The first book that I'd like to read is called You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hoggle. This is an adult romance story that follows our couple called Naomi and Nicholas, and they are affianced, engaged, about to get married, but neither of them really fully love each other. But they don't want to back out from the wedding because whoever calls it quits has to pay the bill for the wedding, which is a lot of money. And the story follows them as they both realise that they don't really like each other anymore, so they try to get each other to bail on the wedding so they have to pay. However, in the process, they realise that they love each other. It just sounds like a really cute, sappy, true romance. And that is out on April the 7th, so technically it's already out by the time I post this video. The second book, which is also released on the April the 7th, is called Chosen Ones by Veronica Roth. Veronica Roth, if you're wondering where have I heard that name before, it is the author of the Divergent series, which I personally really liked when I read them years ago. Whereas the Divergent trilogy was a young adult dystopian trilogy, The Chosen Ones is Veronica Roth's first adult fantasy sci-fi, and it is the first of a series. As of right now, it's a duology. And this follows 5 teenagers who 10 years ago saved the world. One of them is the chosen one. And what happens is it's now 10 years since they saved the world, and they're all kind of adrift. They don't know what to do with themselves until somebody's father, I believe, passes away, and they come together for the funeral and they realise that the Dark One isn't as defeated as they thought they were. This just sounds like a really interesting what happens after you save the world kind of story, and the characters themselves are in their 20s, so it sounds like it's verging on new adult, which I'm really interested to read. New adult is quite an emerging genre, I think, so something that's quite on the edge will be very interesting to delve into. The next book comes out on April the 21st, and that is Race the Sands by Sarah Durst. This is an adult standalone fantasy, which is unique of itself, I think. And in this world, there are races, and these races are taking place on, I believe, like monsters. The cover shows like a lion, so I'm not 100% sure what the creatures are, but essentially the winner of the race is, it's a prestigious title, and this book follows 2 female leads. Raya wants to win the race because the prize money would mean that she could buy her freedom from her domineering family, and Temra wants to win the race because her daughter is being threatened to be taken away from her, so the prize would help her with that. And essentially it just sounds like a really interesting fantasy but a race kind of story, which I haven't heard anywhere else. Also, plot twist thrown in, there seems to be people who can tell the future, and if you are deemed bad, you'll be turned into a monster and you can never come back to being human. So, got me interested. Next, April 28th, Don't Call the Wolf by Alexandra Ross is a debut fantasy novel for that author, and it's being posed as if you love Holly Black, which I don't, but also if you love Leigh Bardugo, which I do. They come together and you will like this book. So I thought I would really give it a go because I really love Bardugo enough that my dislike for Holly Black's writing is a little bit overshadowed. In this young adult book, we are in a forest, and what happens is a golden dragon comes to the forest, but in its wake a lot of demons, and Wren is the forest's young queen, and she's fighting off all these demons, but she can't really do it. She's struggling, the demons, they're crashing on her like waves of guilt for sitting around and not doing anything productive during this quarantine period. Until her table's turned and she meets the last known dragon slayer. And in repayment for her helping him find his lost brother, he will help her slay the dragon and the demons. It just sounds really cute. It sounds like it could be quite atmospheric, quite an autumn read maybe, wrapped up in a blanket, all cozy. It's getting into autumn in the southern hemisphere, guys, not spring. I'm so jealous. I love the warmer seasons. But anyway, the next book also comes out on April 28th, and that is Clique by Anne Villay. This is posed as a young adult contemporary thriller, which is posed as Pretty Little Liars meets Burn for Burn coming together. I haven't read Burn for Burn, but I know what Pretty Little Liars is about. And it sounds very, to be honest, Mean Girls-esque. Our main character, what's her name? Chloe. Chloe is our main character. Her friend was essentially pooped on by the it girls, and Chloe decides, you know what, I ain't taking none of this, and my friend shouldn't have to either. So she strips off her jeans and t-shirt, gets all designer, infiltrates, and essentially ruins them all. I am a little bit hesitant about this book because Anne Villay was a Wattpad writer, and in my experience, Wattpad writers can still seem, how do I put this? Can still seem like their writing style has room to develop when they come to a book. But the premise sounds super intriguing, so I'm really hoping it's a goodie. In May, there are only 3 books that I'm personally really interested in, and they all come out on May the 5th. Easy to remember. My simple brain can deal with that. First of all is Forged in Fire and Stars. This is written by Andrea Robertson, and this is a young adult fantasy. And this one sold me because apparently it's Game of Thrones meets Ember in the Ashes. Love both of those series, although Ember in the Ashes went a little downhill for me, but either way, absolutely love both of those series vibes. And this follows Ara. Now, Ara is an up-and-coming essentially the king and queen's blacksmith, and they are called lawsmiths in this world. And so she's being trained, she's like an apprentice, and she's just living her life, doing her thing, hammy hammy, bangy bangy, and that's going swell until a lost princess and prince come her way and want to take back the throne. So they ask her to be their lawsmith, and she does that. The blurb uses the word steal, so maybe they don't ask her. They pluck little Ara out and end up getting her to help them with their quest to retake the throne. And so it's essentially just a story of retaking the throne. Everybody's got some like drama, some mystique, some backstabbing each other, and all round good time. Next up is a young adult contemporary romance by the title of The Life and Medieval Times of Kit. Hang on, there's the last name. Kit Sweetly, and this one is written by Jamie Paxton, and it starts off with our female character being a waitress at a medieval fair, and you know, she's getting by, she's getting tips, but when you go into knighthood you get lots of money. However, knighthood is only for men, so she does a little bit of, oh my gosh, what's that like movie where the girl becomes a boy to play football at high school? Oh, I know, this is it. Very those vibes, because what happens is she then takes place of her brother. So she pretends to be her brother, goes into knighthood, and then reveals, I'm a lady, I got boobs, and essentially she just throws everybody into absolute chaos and mayhem, and it just sounds like a right old laugh. And the last book I'm really interested in reading is called Felix Ever After. This is a YA contemporary with strong LGBTQ plus representation, because our main character is transgender, she to he. And not only is Felix Love transgender, he's also gay and black, so he feels like he is one marginalisation too many. And what happens in this story is he's at high school, and then someone finds his old female name and old photos of him before he transitioned and posts them online, and he's kind of trying to fight against that, reclaim his identity. And as someone who this year is really delving into more of queer representation sort of books, this one just really shouted out to me. I haven't read a book about a transgender person before, so this is a first that I really want to delve into. And then also in May, it's not one that I'm personally going to read, but just putting it out there, honourable mention for Song of Ballads, Songbirds, Snakes thingy, book 0 to the Hunger Games trilogy, which I have sitting right there. I've read Hunger Games, but I still need to finish the other 2, and then I'll get to book 0, but not for me right now. But just in case you haven't seen it absolutely being thrown in your face on every other booktube channel, That's coming out in May. We then get to June, and June has 6 books, and all of them I am so excited for. The first one being A Song of Wraiths and Ruin by Rosanna Brown. Here's the thing about YA fantasy. All the titles sound exactly the same. Can someone just come in and make something a bit more original instead of blah and blah? But this one jumped out to me because it's the first in a duology, and it's set in West Africa, and it talks about refugees, which I think is, you know, very relevant in today's climate. And this young adult fantasy follows 2 perspectives. There is Malik, who comes from a just barely scraping by kind of family, and Princess Karina. Now, Malik is about to leave his city when a vengeful spirit abducts his sister, and then in repayment for getting his sister back, he strikes a deal. His sister's life for Princess Karina's. Now, Princess Karina, girl, she has her own plan going on. Her mum has recently been assassinated. She decides she's going to kill the assassin with like some dark magic of some sort, and that magic requires the beating heart of a king. So she starts their traditional competition for the males to fight out to win her heart, and that's how she's going to get a heart. And if I don't say that our main character is going to be in that competition, I'll eat my jazzy. You know what I mean. It sounds gripping, something that is totally up my alley. I love things with competitions and drama and potential love entanglement in there. Impeccable. Oh, and that was on June the 2nd, and another June the 2nd book is called The Dark Tide by Alice, I'm gonna ruin this, Jasinska. This one is another mashup supposedly of The Wicked Deep and A Curse So Dark and Lonely. I've not read either of those books, in case you have. That's apparently their vibe, and this honestly sounds like a lot's going on, so I'm just going to read it from here. So, every year on St. Walpurga's Eve, Caldala's witch queen lures a boy back to her palace. Lena Kirk is convinced her brother is going to be taken, so she enlists the help of Thomas Lunn, a boy she secretly loves, and what ends up happening is Thomas is chosen to be the sacrifice. Then comes in another queen, Queen Eva. Admittedly, I'm a bit confused here, but Queen Eva watched her own sister die one day to save the boy that she loved, and now as a queen, she won't make the same mistake. I'm wondering if it's the same queen here. Someone who wrote this blurb, just make that a tad clearer, would you? Just putting that out there. Essentially, Lena offers herself in replacement for the boy, and her and Eva wait together. And I'm pretty sure I also read somewhere that this is based off a Scottish fairy tale or myth, and that's what got me really intrigued. So, admittedly, the blurb leaves a little bit to the imagination, but I'm interested. And another June the 2nd release is The Court of Miracles. Again, that name, like, I swear I've had that title 13 times before. Anyway, this is written by Kester Grant. It is a young adult fantasy, and it's also a historical retelling. Now, retellings aren't always my favourite, but this one sounds intriguing enough that I'm hooked already. It's Les Miserables meets Six of Crows. Sounds decadent, and it follows our main character called Nina as she goes through like 1828 set Paris, where the revolution has ended and everybody is kind of cut between being loyal to the royals or going into like the disastrous, dark, dank. That's not a synonym that I was meant to use. Damp underground of criminality. Nina ultimately ends up becoming a baddie. She has to look after her naive sister Etty, but unfortunately Etty catches the eye of the tiger. The eye of the tiger. Anyway, the tiger is the ruler of the Guild of Flesh, which doesn't sound too posh, and Nina just is trying to save Etty from this. As of right now, this is book 1 in a trilogy. We then have a young adult sci-fi dystopia. This comes out on June the 9th, and it's called Agnes at the End of the World, written by Kelly McWilliams. So this follows Agnes, who is a resident in Red Creek, where she looks after her brothers and sisters, even though there are some super strict rules going on, until one day she meets an outsider, a boy. And what he tells her is that plot twist girl, Red Creek is run by a cult who calls himself a prophet and is nothing like the real world. So she's then debating, do I send myself and my family out there? However, out there isn't that safe either. There's a raging pandemic. So it's all about her apparently choosing between her family or saving the world in classic YA sci-fi fashion. Next up, on June 23rd, Deadly Curious is released, and that's written by Cindy Anstey. And this is another historical young adult, but it's also a mystery. It's 1834, and our main character Sophie wants nothing more than to be a detective, but classic times, you can't. Only men are smart enough to be detectives. Until she gets an opportunity to prove her intelligence, and this just sends her on this intense detective chase case thing, and it just sounds absolutely marvellous. I can only imagine what the atmosphere will be like set in 1834, and I'm really excited for it. And it's giving me major Sherlock Holmes vibes, which is what I'm reading right now, so yay. And then lastly, this is also a June 23rd release, and it's called The Angel of Crows by Catherine Addison, and this is another historical fantasy, but this one's adult. And this is another one which I'm just going to read straight from the Goodreads blurb because I'll just butcher it. Pun intended. So it's a fantasy novel, like I said, set in the 1880s. But the difference here is that it's not humans that walk the pavements. It is vampires and werewolves and supernatural creatures that we have known to be previously shunned, as well as angels are mixed in here. And this is great. Everyone's loving it, except angels can fall, and when they fall, it's a catastrophe for all humans and werewolf, vampire, supernatural beings. And so when an angel falls, it is described as a nuclear bomb in both the physical and metaphysical worlds, and human beings remain human with all their kindness and greed and passions and murderous intent. Also, you might have heard of Jack the Ripper. Instead of Jack the Ripper in this alternate 1880s tale, you have someone called the Angel of Crows. Sounds dark, sounds intriguing. So those are 15 books that I'm really excited to see come out in the next 3 months. If there are any books that you are really interested to see and I haven't mentioned them here, please leave them down below so we can all have a look and add them to our Goodreads. As always, I hope you guys are staying safe during these crazy times, and if you've enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a cheeky like and subscribe down below. So that's it from me. Happy reading and enjoy all the places you go. Bye.